check the streaming. Yes, we are live. Okay, hold on 1 second. Okay, today, for those of you who don't know, it's the last day of the Damodar month. Wow, that is amazing. And so, see if I can. All right, I think I remember all these things. So it's also Krishna's Rasa Yatra dance. That's the Rasa dance in the full moon. And also it's the appearance day of Nimbarkacharya, and also it's the Tulasi Saligram Vivah. 2 things, or 3 things to do. Anyway, so in honor of the last day of Kartik, we're going to chant the Damodar Ashtaka prayers. I'm not saying for the last time ever, but at least the last time this month of Kartik, at least online, because I have another program a little later tonight. Okay, so let's get the trusty guitar out. Namam Vishwaram Satchit Anandurupam Lasat Gunlalam Gokule Brajamanam Yasoda Viulukalad Dapamanam Haram Vishtamachantatu Ruchagopra Rudam Tamuhuletra Yubam Richantam Karam Bojachumena Satanganetram Mugu Shashakampa Tire Kankakanta Sita Gravam Damodaram Bhakti Vadam Iti Drikswali Labir Ananda Kunde Swagocham Nimashantam Makyapayantam Tati Yeshita Geshu Bhaktadi Tatvam Punat Premaptastam Chata Divandale Varam Neva Mokshamna Mokshavatirma Yachanumbrahine Ambarishadakriya Idam Deva Purnata Balabala Sadame Manas Shavirasam Himanyai Idam Trimuktam Bojam Ajantanenai Ritam Kutalai Sneda Ratashanuda Mokusyumitam Mimbaratata
Vristi vristati inamatanu Pranachama manyame yakshiraja Uvera bajo vada Ujjaya jyada Tvaya mojina Mati bajo pinota Nata prema prapti swadam me priyaja Namuchi garo mesti namo doreya Namaste studame Smadipidamne Swati Uttarai Atat Vishwashanamne Namo Radhikaya Namo Natali Daya Devaya Radha Damodar Damodar Radhe Radhe Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paravidikacharya also Teta Satashi Shima His Divine Grace Savaya Charanana Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Nantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Parem Se Gaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Gadadha Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radhakrishna Gopi Gopinath, Shyam Kunda, Radhakunda, Giri, Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavan Ki Jai, Machuranam Ki Jai, Jagadasami Ki Jai, Yamunamai Ki Jai, Shrimati Tulasi Devi Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta, Vrinda Ki Jai, Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bo. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Nama Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prastaya Budale, Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani Namaste, Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharni, Nirvashesha Shunyavadi Paschacha Dejatarni. Let me read the translation. And I know there's a lot of noise here, but they're preparing for a festival tonight for Tulasi, Saligram, Vivah. So, to the Supreme Controller who possesses an eternal form of blissful knowledge, whose glistening earrings swing to and fro, who manifested himself in Gokula, who stole the butter that the gopis kept hanging from the rafters of their storerooms, and then quickly jumped up and ran and retreated in fear of Mother Yashoda, but was ultimately caught. To that Supreme Lord Sri Damodar I offer my humble obeisances. Upon seeing his mother's whipping stick, he cried and rubbed his eyes again and again with his two lotus hands. His eyes were fearful and his breathing quick, and as Mother Yashoda bound his belly with ropes, he shivered in fright and his pearl necklace shook. To the Supreme Lord Sri Damodar, who is bound by his devotee's love, I offer my humble obeisances. Those super excellent pastimes of Lord Krishna's babyhood drown the inhabitants of Gokula in pools of ecstasy. To the devotees who are attracted only to his majestic aspect of Narayana and Vaikuntha, the
The Lord herein reveals I am conquered and overwhelmed by pure loving devotion. To the Supreme Lord Damodar my obeisances hundreds and hundreds of times. O Lord, although you are able to give all kinds of benedictions, I do not pray to you for liberation, nor eternal life in Vaikuntha, nor any other boon. My only prayers are that your childhood pastimes may constantly appear in my mind. O Lord, I do not even want to know your feature of Paramatma. I simply wish that your childhood pastimes may ever be enacted in my heart. O Lord, the cheeks of your blackish lotus face, which is encircled by locks of curling hair, have become reddened like bimbo fruit due to Mother Yashoda's kisses. What more can I describe than this? Millions of opulences are of no use to me, but may this vision constantly remain in my mind. O unlimited Vishnu, O Master, O Lord, be pleased upon me. I am drowning in an ocean of sorrow and am almost like a dead man. Please shower the rain of mercy upon me, uplift me, and protect me with your nectarian vision. O Lord Damodar, in your form as a baby, Mother Yashoda bound you to a grinding stone with a rope for tying cows. You then freed the sons of Kuvera, Manigriva, and Nalakuvara, who were cursed to stand as trees, and you gave them the chance to become your devotees. Please bless me in the same way. I have no desire for liberation into your effulgence. O Lord, the entire universe was created by Lord Brahma, who was born from your abdomen, which was bound with a rope by Mother Yashoda. To this rope I offer my humble obeisances. I offer my obeisances to your most beloved Srimati Radharani and to your unlimited pastimes. Lord Damodar ki jai. Damodar Ashtaka ki jai. So, with that in mind, we're going to, I guess we may not get to the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita today. So I just want to talk about the three things that occurred today. So Om Ganata Mirandasha Gananjana Shlakaya Chakshur Mritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. And I think most of the class is going to be taken up with talking about the Tulasi Saligram Vivah story, which is a very interesting story, and I have my notes here. But first, we'll mention this is Krishna's Rasa dance. Rasa dance means a dance in which Krishna dances with the gopis. Anyway, there's many different stories about the Rasa dance, and it's a very esoteric subject matter. Of course, when Krishna first called the gopis out to dance with him, he played his flute, the gopis came out, and Krishna said, "What are you doing out here? There's so many wild animals, tigers and everything like that, go back home." And the gopis got upset with Krishna. And eventually, Krishna, after having some verbal exchange with the gopis, accepted the gopis. So, anyway, today is the commemoration of one of Krishna's rasa dances. So, and now I'll mention about Nimbarkacharya. Nimbarkacharya is a very important personality because he is the Acharya of the Kumara Sampradaya. He's the modern founder Acharya of the Kumara Sampradaya. Kumara means the four Kumaras, who are the sons of Lord Brahma. There's four different Sampradayas. There is the Kumara Sampradaya, which we just mentioned, the Brahma Sampradaya, which we're members of, the Lakshmi Sampradaya, which starts with Lakshmi, actually Lord Vishnu teaching Lakshmi, and finally the Rudra, or the Lord Shiva Sampradaya. And these four Sampradayas are bona fide Sampradayas, and any mantra you receive, it hasn't come down into succession from one of these Sampradayas, that mantra doesn't work. Sampradaya Vinaya Mantraste Nishpala Mataha. So, talking about Nimbarkacharya, he appeared in the 11th or the 12th century AD, and he appeared in the Dravidian province, which is South India, of course, and in a Brahmin family. And he was actually very, very detached from his very birth and absorbed in worship. And what happened is that he originally was, according Well, actually, before we talk about his devotion, let's talk about why he's called Nimbarkacharya. One day, he invited a Jain to take prasadam, and the Jains don't take prasadam when it's dark, after sunset. So this Jain said, no, I'm sorry, I can't take prasadam because it's after sunset. And so what he did is he manifested the sun coming from a nimba tree. Therefore he's called Nimbarkacharya, because he had this great sunlight or light coming from this nimba tree, and the Jain was able to take prasadam from him or with him, and they were very happy. So that's why it's called Nimbarkacharya. So, but then later on sometime, he was worshiping Lord Shiva with a bunch of Shaivites, and they were chanting Lord Shiva's glories, and they came upon Lord Shiva, which is very interesting. Let me try to elevate this thing a little bit so it's the right height. Hold on a second. All right, that's a little better. So they came upon Lord Shiva in a forest. And Lord Shiva, what did he say to him? He actually said, just go to the nearby forest. And what should you do? Find the 4 Kumaras. So he went to the nearby forest, and he found the 4 Kumaras, and they were deep in meditation, because that's what they do. They meditate. And they opened their eyes, and they were happy to see him. And they gave him initiation. They initiated him in what's called the Radha Krishna mantra. And the Radha Krishna mantra is similar to the Hare Krishna Maha mantras. Instead of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, is Radha Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Anyway, Radha Krishna, Radha Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Radha Radha. Okay, got it. So, and you'll find devotees who are followers of Nimbarkacharya in Braj today, particularly in places like Barshana and other places, and they are chanting the Radha Krishna mantra. I remember even when I was in Nardakund, which is right near Kushama Sarovar, right near Govardhan, of course, there were devotees chanting this Radha Krishna mantra. So we don't criticize them because that's in their sampradaya. The mantra is coming down in the sampradaya, and it's more or less the same as the Hare Krishna Maha mantra. But we chant the Hare Krishna Maha mantra because that's the mantra we've been given in our sampradaya. But the other sampradaya is completely bona fide. So anyway, he's worshiping Radha Krishna, and he traveled many places around India. And according to Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in his Navadvip Mahatmya, at one particular point, Nimbarkacharya went to Navadvip. And when he was in Navadvip, he actually had a vision of Radha and Krishna, and then he had a vision of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Radha and Krishna combined. Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Radha Krishna, Nahi Anya. So it's described that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is actually Radha and Krishna as one. So he had this vision, and Lord Chaitanya spoke to him. He said, my dear devotee, actually don't reveal any of the things that I'm telling you right now, but in the future, you will take birth and be one of my associates, and you will take birth in the country or place in India called Kashmir. And when you take birth in Kashmir, you're going to become a great scholar. And you, as a great scholar, will travel all over India challenging people to debate. And then you will come to Navadvip, and you will challenge me to debate, because this is when I'm going to be appearing. And when you challenge me to debate, I will defeat you. You will be a great devotee of the goddess Saraswati, the goddess of learning. So, that's actually what happened. he traveled around India in his next incarnation as Keshava Kashmiri, and he challenged Lord Chaitanya, who was Nimai at that particular point. Nimai was on the bank of the Ganges, and Lord Chaitanya sort of praised him. He said, "I heard you're a great scholar. Can you compose 100 verses in glorification of Mother Ganges?" So this Keshava Kashmiri composed 100 verses in glorification of Mother Ganges, and when he did that, Lord Chaitanya pointed out some faults, literary faults, not major faults, literary faults in one of the verses. And this Keshava Kashmiri, he was shocked because the goddess of learning, Saraswati, was actually blessing him, and that night he had a dream. And the goddess of learning, Saraswati, chastised him and said, "Hey, you've been arguing with my husband, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, you should go and apologize to him." So he went and apologized to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Lord Chaitanya revealed who he was to Keshava Kashmiri. And Keshava Kashmiri manifested himself as a great devotee after that particular period of time, and previously he was Nimbarkacharya. Very interesting story. And part of that story is told by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his Navadvip Dham Mahatmya. Okay, and finally, I'm pulling out my notes right now, it is the commemoration of the Tulasi Saligram Vivah. Let me find it. Here we go. So, here is the story of the Tulasi Saligram Vivah, for those of you who are interested. Vivah, of course, means marriage. So, Tulsi, of course, is a Tulsi plant, and Shaligram is the stone in which Lord Krishna incarnates in various forms. It's not the same as a Govardhan Shila. A Shaligram Shila comes from the Gandaki River, and a Govardhan Shila comes from the hill of Govardhan. So here's the story. Once upon a time, Narada Muni asked Narayan, "How did Tulsi become your wife? Where was she born? And why is she a tree?" Because it's very uncommon to find a devotee of God who's a tree. I mean, at least in this world it is. And Lord Narayan tells Narada Muni the whole story. He says, once upon a time, this is a little complicated, so try to follow. There was a descendant of Manu. His name was Rishadwaja, who was a great devotee of Lord Shiva, who loved Lord Shiva. But this great devotee of Lord Shiva made a mistake. He stopped worshiping Lord Narayan and the other demigods. And the other demigods got upset with him because basically if you worship Krishna, that takes care of all the demigods. But if you worship one of the demigods, the other ones get upset. So here's what happened. So Surya became angry with this Rishadwaja, and he cursed him to lose his wealth. And so Lord Shiva, he got very angry at Surya. Wow. And then the sun god, the sun god wanted protection. So he went all the way to Brahmaloka with Kashyapa and then to Vaikuntha, and Lord Narayan gave them fearlessness. And then Lord Shiva arrived and became peaceful. Okay, I'll forgive him. That's all right. So, then Lord Narayan explains, because of the time factor anyway, this Rishadwaja is dead. His son died also. He has two grandsons named Dharmadwaja and Kushadwaja. Don't worry, you don't have to remember all these names. But they're worshiping Lakshmi, and they're Vaishnavas. And this Dharmadwaja and Kushadwaja performed austerities, and Dharmadwaja and his wife Madhavi gave birth to an expansion of Lakshmi. after 100 celestial years, a long pregnancy. 100 celestial years in the womb. And her name was Tulasi. And she was beautiful. She had lotus flowers on her feet, an imprint, that is. Her eyes were like lotus, her lips were like bimba, that means naturally red. Her palms and soles were reddish, navel was deep. Anyway, all the different bodily symptoms were described. And this Tulsi went to Badrinath to perform austerities because she was a devotee of Krishna. She wanted to get Krishna as her husband. So she performed austerities for 100,000 years in Badrinath. For the first 20,000, she just ate fruits and water, vegan diet. For the next 30,000, dried leaves. For the next 40,000, air. And for the next 10,000, nothing. And she was standing on one leg. And when she did those austerities, Lord Brahma came and offered her a boon. And Lord Brahma explained her past. He said, in the past, you were a gopi. You were a partial expansion of Srimati Radharani. And here's the story, that you got intimate with Krishna. And Radha saw that and got very angry and cursed her. Krishna said, therefore you will take birth in India and marry Narayan. Okay. But Brahma replied to her, telling her the whole story. First you will marry the Shankachuda. And who's Shankachuda? He was actually Sujam, one of Krishna's cowherd boyfriends, who Tulsi was attracted to in Goloka. But actually, how do you say, why does people get attracted in Goloka when they don't have material bodies? It's all yogamaya. It has nothing to do with material sense gratification. These are all great pure devotees. And then Lord Brahma described that you were both Shati Smarna. You could both remember who you were in your past lives. So this Shankachuda, who was Sudam previously, performed austerities to get you as his wife. And Lord Brahma said, later on, you will get Narayan. And you will become a Tulsi plant known as Vrindavani. So Tulsi then asked Lord Brahma for benediction, thinking this is really complicated. Please let me lose fear, or any fear, of Srimati Radharani. So Lord Brahma gave her an initiation in the 16-letter Radha mantra, which I'm not going to tell you because you're all not qualified. And if you chant this, you'll become very dear to Radha, and she will approve of your relationship with Krishna. It's a 16-syllable Radha mantra. So Tulsi worshipped Radha for 12 years. Then what happened? This is all Yogamaya. Don't think this is some material consciousness, although it appears to be from an external viewpoint. So in the meantime, Kamadev attacked her. Kamadev means Cupid. So Cupid, he fires these arrows. Form, taste, smell, the objects of the senses. And he attracts people. Just like in this material world, a man looks at a woman looks at a man, and boom! They lose their brains. So this is Cupid, and Kandharva. Cupid is also known as Ananga, which means he has no external form. In other words, invisible. So you don't see him when he's coming. And then he becomes so stupid after he comes. Not a good idea. So this is not some material thing. This is actually a pastime of Krishna. Believe me. So Cupid comes,
affects her, and she starts seeing Shankachuta in her dreams. And she's crying. Whew, that's love for you. I mean, I'll tell you something. When I see Prabhupada in my dream, I cry. I don't think I ever cried for anyone else. So anyway, so here's the point about Shankachuta, his birth. Of course, he was Sudam and he was cursed. He to come down to, and he's attracted to Tulasi, but there's more to this. So here's the birth of Shankachuta. Kashyapa and Danu, who was the mother of the Danavas, sort of demons, had a son named Viprachiti. Actually, he's a very interesting son. His son was Damba, who was a devotee of Vishnu. Damba went to the Pushkara forest, performed austerities for 100,000 years, chanting Krishna's name. An effulgence came from his head, and the demigods were really worried. When someone has an effulgence from his head, it can be a little scorching. And they were assured by Vishnu when they went to Vaikuntha that he's going to give Damba, or a blessing, to have a son who is invincible, unconquerable. And so the wife of Damba then became pregnant, and Sudam then took birth as Shankachuta. And Shankachuta naturally, you see, even the demons, because Sudam is acting as a demon, even the demons perform austerities. Nowadays, of course, the people who are acting demoniacally are not actual bona fide demons, they're just confused spirit souls. Performed austerities, Lord Brahma appeared and gave him the benediction that he would be invincible to the demigods and marry Tulasi. And he gave an amulet that would make him invincible. And that amulet was called the Sri Krishna Sarva Mangala Maya. And he instructed him to marry Tulasi. He tells him to go to Badarika Ashram, where Tulasi is at that particular point. Marry Tulasi. Okay, so here we go. So Tulasi, when she sees Shankachuta, she doesn't just give in immediately. She tests him. She's a little. Anyway, she has a little interesting streak to her character. She tells Shankachuta the nature of women. He responds, and she warns him. And Shankachuta says, "That's not you. The nature is only women who are in passion, not those in goodness." It's interesting. Lord Brahma sent me to you. This is actually a very romantic statement that Shankachuta made to Tulasi. He said, Lord Brahma sent me to you. Okay, sent me to you. And they get married immediately by the Gandharva rite. Gandharva rite is you just exchange garlands, say a few mantras, and no expensive marriage ceremony. Save a lot of money, save a lot of time. Don't get any presents, of course, but there's an upside and a downside to it. So, and then they actually know their past too. And Brahma comes actually to witness this Gandharva rite. And he says, in the future, don't worry, you'll get Krishna as your husband. So then the couple goes off and enjoys the kingdom, and Shankachuta enjoys the kingdom with his wife for 4,300, actually 4,300,000 years. And he gets complete control of all the heavenly kingdoms and everything like that. And the demigods, they get upset. They go to Lord Brahma. Brahma goes to Shiva. Then they go to Lord Narayan. And they explain everything. We got a problem here. The heavenly planets have been taken over the Shankachuta demon with his wife Tulasi. They're just like, got to get rid of them. And so whenever there's problems in the universe, the demigods go to Brahma, and then Lord Brahma takes them all to see Lord Narayan, or they meditate on Lord Narayan on the shore of the ocean of milk. So the reason, at this point of the story, the reason Sudama is there on this earth planet, not simply that he was attracted to Tulasi, but he was also cursed by Radharani. Why was he cursed by Radharani? This is a pastime. Believe me, These are playful activities of these devotees. Krishna is not subjecting his devotees to misery. So, all right, so in the spiritual world, let's go back a little bit. Radharani was having an affair with Viraja, and Radharani cursed her to become a river, and Radharani started yelling at Krishna, what are you doing? Krishna was silent, and Sudam, he defended Krishna. He actually said, Radharani, don't say this to Krishna. You definitely don't want to get angry at Radharani, but this is what he did. That's the last thing I'd want to do. And Radharani cursed him to be born as the son of a demon, Danava. And Sudama was crying when he was cursed like that, but Radharani felt some compassion. She's full of compassion. And Krishna says, don't worry, this is actually all my plan. Krishna arranges things. Even when there's some cursing, it's just like Krishna saying, it's my arrangement. So don't worry, he'll come back in half a moment. Now that's interesting, half a moment, because half a moment in the spiritual world is equivalent to an practically unlimited amount of time in the material world. But in other words, the spirit soul is gone from the spiritual world. It's not really gone. It's like half a moment, half an instant. You can't even notice that they're gone. Perhaps it'll be like that when we go back. We won't even notice. We'll just say, I just had some little dream or something like that. I dreamt I was on the Earth planet. Just like, what happened? So, anyway, so this is the miracle or the reason for Sudama taking birth as Shankachuta. So here, let's go back to the story where the demigods are fighting with Shankachuta, and Narayan gives a trident to Lord Shiva to kill Shankachuta. And he explains that he's going to take the jewel away from Shankachuta, this amulet that he has to protect me and violate the chastity. And in this way, Shiva's going to be able to kill Shankachuta. So Shiva gets ready to attack Shankachuta, and Shankachuta accepts the challenge, and also accompanying Lord Shiva of Kartikeya, the Vasus, the Ditches, Indra, Agni, Bhadrakali, Shu. And Shankachuta tells Tulasi, they're at home, enjoying life. He tells her, actually, there's a battle. He says, preaches to her, and he understands what's going to happen. He says, don't worry, in the future, we'll both be back serving Radha and Krishna. Wow. So, there's preparation for war. Shankachuta's son is appointed as the king. There's 300,000 Akshahinis. And he even bows, Shankachuta, observing the etiquette, bows to Lord Shiva and Bhadrakali, and they bless Shankachuta. Shiva explains the past of Shankachuta to Shankachuta because he already knows that. He says, you're a Vaishnava, you should return. He explains the philosophy. But Shankachuta says, no, this is my service, what I'm supposed to do. Then the war begins, and the demigods are defeated. Kartikeya, who is the general of the demigods, and Kali enter the battle, and all these weapons are fired at Shankachuta, but they all fail. And of course, Shankachuta doesn't fire any weapons back at Bhadrakali because he doesn't want to hurt a woman. And Kali gets ready to kill him with her trident, but she's stopped because Lord Brahma says, don't do that. Shankachuta has this boon. So Bhadrakali desists, and instead she's angry and she kills millions of other demons. And some of the demons, anyway, it's described even here that she ate some of the demons. They came out of her mouth and stuff like that. So Lord Shiva enters the battle. Shankachuta offers obeisances. In 1 year, they're fighting. They fight for 1 year. Lord Shiva finally grabs this trident that's given to him by Lord Narayan and
a voice says, "Stop, Lord Shiva. I'm reminding you of what's supposed to happen. There's an amulet that's supposed to be taken away from Shankachuta first, and the chastity of his wife has to be violated. Two things have to happen for Shankachuta to die." So Shiva prays to Lord Vishnu. Vishnu appears and agrees to help. First, he takes the form of an old Brahmin. And this old Brahmin goes to Shankachuta and says, "Shankachuta, please give me your amulet." And of course, even the demons, they had etiquette. If the Brahmins asked for something, they would give it. Then Lord Vishnu changes his form and takes the form of Shankachuta and goes to Tulsi's place, the palace, and makes believe he is Shankachuta. In other words, he puts on the form of Shankachuta. And he tells his wife, we had a peace treaty. Lord Brahma came and he made peace between us, so don't worry, I'm coming back. And then Lord Vishnu violates Tulsi's chastity, anyway, because he's in the form of Shankachuta. And at that point, Lord Shiva fires this trident, which is named Vijay. It's 100 suns, bright as 100 suns, 14,000 cubits long, 100 cubits wide. Whew, that's pretty big. Shankachuta knows it's coming. He sits in a yoga posture, meditates on Krishna's feet. Shankachuta gets killed. His bones are tossed into the sea and they become conscious. So the holy water in the conch is sacred like a sacred river. That's why we offer conches, or water in the conch, to Krishna. Conches are offered to Krishna, but not to Lord Shiva. It's very important. That's mentioned in the Puranas. Only to Krishna. A conch is blown indicates Lakshmi is there. But if low-class people blow a conch, Lakshmi runs away. The conch indicates Lord Hari and Lakshmi. So very, very important. Of course, there are special Lakshmi conches which go in the opposite direction of the normal conches, and we have found some, and we gave them to the devotees in Fiji. Actually gave them to Vasudev in Fiji. So Sudam regains his original form with jeweled flute, cowherd boys, and he goes right back to Goloka Vrindavan. And Radha and Krishna are very happy to see him. They put him on their laps. Tulsi, in the meantime, is with Narayan, who has taken the form of Shankachuta, and she discovers she's been deceived. And she gets really angry. She says, "You are like a stone. Your heart is like a stone. You are merciless. You violated my chastity by deception. That means you have killed my husband. You are merciless. Your heart is terrible. I curse you to become a stone." Those who think you are holy are completely wrong. Your devotee didn't commit any offense. You killed him. Why? And then Lord Narayan explains that you really wanted me to get me as a husband, and Shankachuta wanted to get you as a wife. He fulfilled his wish, and it was necessary for me to fulfill your wish. You asked for it. Now leave your body and assume a spiritual body and be married to me. He said, you should be like Lakshmi. Your body will become a famous river known as the Gandaki River, the expansion. A pure river in the holy land of India. Of course, it's in Nepal, mostly in Nepal right now. Your hairs will be transformed into holy trees. That's the Tulsi tree. And since the trees will be born of you, they will be known as Tulsi trees. So that's the hair. It's really interesting. Tulsi's hair, the trees. Lord Vishnu says, all the residents of the three worlds will worship with the leaves and flowers of this tree. Thus you will reign as the best amongst the trees and flowers. And so This is why Tulsi becomes a tree and Lord Vishnu becomes a stone, manifests himself as a stone. So there's so many benedictions here. It says, all the holy places, I'm just reading some of them, all the holy places will converge and reside at the root of the Tulsi tree, and spiritual merits will accrue to all. Whoever will be moistened and anointed with the water that has been sanctified by Tulsi leaves will reap the benefits of having bathed in all the sacred rivers and performed all the sacrifices. Lord Hari will not be as pleased with the gift of 1,000 jars of honey as with one Tulsi leaf. And we know that story, the Govardhan Puja story, where Govardhan took this gigantic form and was eating all the food at the Annakut, and there wasn't anything left. And he went, said, give me more, Anior. And there wasn't any more, and everybody was really nervous. So finally, they gave him one Tulsi leaf, and he was satisfied. Offering one leaf to Krishna will bring the same reward as obtained by offering millions of cows. If one offers Tulsi leaves during the month of Kartik, he gets the same rewards as those just mentioned. If at the time of death one drinks or gets the Tulsi leaf water, one will be freed of all sins and go back to home, back to God. That's why we put a Tulsi leaf on one's tongue when they're leaving the body. So anyway, there's all these different things. Those who have their, anyway. So much about Tulsi. I don't have times to talk about all. Let's see, other benedictions that are interesting. Anywhere where there's a necklace composed of Tulsi wood will surely at every step get the reward of a horse sacrifice. Whoever breaks his promise while holding a Tulsi leaf will go to hell for as long as the sun and moon last. So if you want to have someone keep a promise, especially, it should be done during the marriage ceremonies. Someone holds, on the right hand, of course, this is my right hand, holds a Tulsi and makes a promise. If you break it, you're going to hell. Wow. And also, anyone who gives it false evidence in the presence of a Tulsi leaf will go to another type of hell known as Kumbhipaka, for as long as the lifespan of 14 Indras. Ooh. Anyway, there's a lot of stuff. Ooh. You will always be the presiding deity of the Tulsi plant on this earth, and you will always be with Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan, be able to sport with him. You will also be the presiding deity of the Gandaki River, and you will shower India with religious merit, and you're the wife of the ocean of salt, which is my partial expansion. You will always remain personally by my side and enjoy my company as Lakshmi does. And then Lord Narayan explains so many blessings of the Saligram Shila. He says, I will become stones in the Gandaki River, and these stones are shaped by the Vajrakita worms with their sharp teeth, and they make different convolutions or rings in the stones, so each and every stone has a particular personality or incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And there's some description here in the Puranas about what each stone is in terms of which incarnation it represents, and we don't have, just like to give an example, it says those who have 2 entrance holes, 4 rings, chakras, are impressed with the marks of cow hooves, but have no garland mark will be called the Raghunath chakras. And there's all these different chakras like that. Chakras and different stones and descriptions like that. There's pages and pages here of, and it tells you when not to worship a stone, when stones are not proper to be worshipped, and the benedictions you get from worshiping the Shaligram Shila. Anyone who, while dying, drinks the Saligram Shila water will be freed from all of his sins and go back to home, back to Godhead. Anyone who lies while holding the Saligram Shila's hands goes to lies. In other words, tells a lie, goes to Kumipaka hell. Same thing as holding the Tulsi leaf, actually. Breaks his promise, goes to Asi Potra hell. So in other words, the Shalagram Shila and the Tulsi plant can be utilized in court cases, at least in disputes between devotees. So Tulsi returns to the spiritual world. The body becomes the Gandiga River, and Lord Hari becomes a mountain on the bank of that river. So anyway, this is a lot of information. And she has 8 names: Brinda, Vrindavani, Vishwapalvani, Vishwapujita, Tulsi, Pushpa, Sada, Nandini, and Krishna Jivani. And there's a whole hymn of 8 verses which we sing. We acquire the merit of performing Ashwamedha sacrifice. Because she's born on the lunar day of the full month, in the month of Kartik, Lord Hari prescribed this day for her worship. And anyone who worships her on this day will go back to home, back to Godhead. So, anyway. Of all the flowers, the Tulsi flower is the best. She's worshipful and beautiful, and burns up all the fuel of sins like a flame of fire. Of all the goddesses, she's the most sacred. Because no one can compare to her, she is called Tulasi. I worship this goddess who is entreated by all. She is placed on the heads of all, desired by all, and makes the universe holy. She bestows liberation from this world and devotion to Lord Hari. I worship her. So, there's so much more information. Okay, so now we have 5 more minutes or something like that for questions and answers. Let me just unmute you. And remember, this is a pastime. So please don't criticize Narayan, don't criticize Krishna. They're playing. It's like little children sometimes play different parts. So the Lord and his devotees, he asks them to play different parts, and he plays different parts. And internally, they're jati smarana, they're always remembering who they are and their eternal position in relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so this is a wonderful play. Of course, while they're absorbed in their parts, they are absorbed in their roles, but it's playful. Try to understand that it's not something that's a punishment, even though you hear about curses and benedictions and everything like that. It's not a punishment. The Lord is not punishing anybody. Okay, does anyone have any questions? Quick questions or comments?
Hare Krishna.
Rishikesh, okay.
Hare Krishna, Gurudev. Gurudev, just curious to know all these benedictions which we hear, right, about Tulsi, such a great benedictions,
Yeah.
Are they to be taken literally, or how do we understand it? I mean, are they
Yes,
really?
of course. Literally, those benedictions are there.
Okay.
But worship, let me just make something very, very clear. So when you talk about worship, it has to be done with the heart. It's not just an external thing. Like if you're worshiping Tulsi and you're just not, let us say your mind is somewhere else, you're not actually worshiping. Because the worship has to be done with the body, mind, and words. So if you're chanting your the japa, for example, and you're not concentrating on it, then it's not the same. So, yeah, it's all these benedictions are true. We're going back to home, back to Godhead. However, you also have to be pure, so it may take a few births. There's other circumstances. Or if you commit offenses against Vaishnavas, there's things that balance each other out. Benedictions are true, but you can balance out a benediction by being a rascal if you like.
I'm just going to catch your lotus feet, Gurudev. That's it.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Okay, thank you very much, Rishikesh.
It's a nice story about Tulsi Devi. Okay, so we have Madhava, I think, has a question.
Krishna Maharaj, Dandavat Pranam. So I have one question. I have learned and heard that actually Mother Saraswati was the wife of Lord Brahma.
Yes.
But I think when you were discussing Nimbarkacharya's story, and then she's wife of Vishnu.
Yeah, so
Saraswati.
the Saraswati, that's the wife of Lord Brahma, is an expansion of the Saraswati, who's the wife of Lord Vishnu. They're different
Oh,
persons. They're different part. One is an expansion of the other.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, so, yeah, this is how it's generally understood that, just like two ladies may have the same name, but in this particular case, Saraswati, who is Lord Brahma's wife, is a expansion of the Saraswati, who is the wife of Lord Vishnu.
Thank you.
Okay, good question. So, any other questions before we end? Because I have a program tonight where I have to tell the story again, which is no problem because I like telling the story. It's a long story, but we have a program here in the temple. I'm in New Orleans right now, Louisiana. New Orleans, Louisiana, we have a very beautiful temple, Radha Radhakanta deities, Gauranatai deities, Jagannath Baladev, Subhadra, Maharani deities, and of course, Prabhupada. So, I guess that's it. We can end. Oh, someone typed a question, let's see, in the chat window. It appears that there's no alternative to devotional service because all these benedictions tells what shall only rid one of sins. No, they actually take one back to Godhead. Didn't you hear? Not only rid you of sins, they take you back to Godhead. The only way you get rid of sins is by devotional service. So, you know, when it says getting rid of sins, the way you get rid of sins is by getting purified by devotional service. So it's automatically understood. And even when you talk about devotional service, automatically that gets rid of sins. So it's actually implicit. Because the only way to get rid of sins, there is no other way to get rid of sins. And that's actually mentioned in the 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam in the story of Ajamil. That there is some question as to how to free people from going to hell. Parikshit Maharaj asked Shukadev Goswami that question. Shukadev Goswami, first he tests Parikshit Maharaj by saying, well, maybe one should do some prayaschitta, which is atonement. And Parikshit Maharaj disagrees with that particular answer and says, no, that doesn't work, because one still has the sin in their hearts. And then finally the answer is, Tasmat Sankirtanam Vishnor Jangan Mangalam Kauravya Jangamangla Anghasam Mahatama Pi Kauravya Vijakanta Ganishkratam. That chanting the Lord's holy names, which is devotional service and also frees one from sins. So we're going to end right now. It is time to end, and tomorrow hopefully we'll be broadcasting same time, same station from our farm community, New Taliban, which is in Mississippi. It's not New Taliban, it's New Taliban. See the B, it's a B, not a B. Of course, if you're Bengali, you'll probably pronounce it New Taliban. So we're not following the Taliban. We're following the Taliban. Taliban, Van means forest. It's one of the forests that has tall trees in the Braj area. Okay, so thank you all, and we will see everybody tomorrow evening.